Hey everyone, Tony Chips here, Chiappetta Shoes. This is a workshop live. We got an E18 foot type left first metatarsal fusion. She had a lot of arthritis over the years, and we just had a fusion in March. Surgery went well, but we're learning some things. Weight got shifted. We are kind of compensating awkwardly by really supinating too much, walking to the outside, not taking that full step. So this is a customer. She has had custom orthotics since late 23 and early 24. They've been comfortable for her, but throughout this time period, we had some changes, obviously. We had a first metatarsal fusion. Now, when we talk about metatarsal fusions, most common is a first met. Sometimes we see things on the second, third, and fourth metatarsal, but either way, most of the time, first metatarsal fusion it's a situation that causes some differences in the biomechanics and the gait dynamics of our foot. When we look at the toes, our big toe is a lever. It kind of helps you propel forward. That's the big toe's job. It has two joints, right? Now, the outside four toes, they're scrunchers. They help with balance. What we commonly see when it comes to a first metatarsal fusion is you lose that ability to really push the foot off, right? Now, our body can compensate in really interesting ways. What most commonly happens when we have a first metatarsal fusion is our second toe tries to be a lever, tries to be that big toe. Problem is, you got an extra joint in that toe, right? So what commonly happens is the toe starts shifting a little bit. You can get a hammering process. You can get a stiffening where it pushes down into that middle joint there too. A lot of weird situations that happen. But with this customer, we're not getting too much irritation other than the toe is shifting a little bit towards midline. So we also have on both left and right a fifth metatarsal corn. I think that's from, over the time period. Just some extra supination, extra pressure. We got to take some pressure off that. So we're going to go with a metatarsal pad. We're going to go with the standard metatarsal pad, not an anatomical one. Anatomical ones kind of have a curvature to big first metatarsal through the fifth toe. Standard met is kind of a nice, even, ovally shape to it. We're going to take the top down, make some nice modifications. So, all right. So, for our met pads, we have two sets of orthotics. We are going to use a common material that I use pretty regularly. We have a 3mm cushion cork and rubber combination that does a really great job for any kind of modifications on the bottom. So we're going to go with that for the mets. Now that's going to address kind of all the metatarsal pressure, help with some of the balancing of the weight from the midfoot through the toe off. And that's something that I'm surprised we didn't do right away. I think she was really comfortable with the orthotic right out of the gate. That's why we only have this little extra forefoot padding. We didn't really have to do too much. It was comfortable right out of the gate. So a lot of times when people get orthotics, with us at Chiappetta Shoes, we don't charge for modifications or adjustments. I can say that 100 times, and it doesn't always connect with the customers. We do free modifications. When you get an orthotic, everybody's body is different. So when we're dealing with first metatarsal arthritis, there's lots of ways to address this. So there's always ability to make changes. Now, we're gonna get this all drawn out. With the, Pete, you got the ruler? Pete. With the metatarsal pads, there's lots of different shapes you can go with, and a lot of times I like using an anatomical one. A standard one gets you a little bit more even pressure from first to fifth. So, okay. Placement's key with a metatarsal pad. You don't want to go too far forward, you don't want to go too far back. Making sure you have proper placement is essential. So we're going to add a met pad. On the right side, we've got a corn that's developed that's been pretty problematic for this customer. She had to go to her foot doctor and have it kind of shaved down. We're going to do a little cutout. We're going to add this new material, EcoCell Impact. Is this called Impact now, Pete? Pete, the real soft stuff that we got? Yeah. Really good soft material. It helps as a cushioning layer. We're going to just do the right side with that. All right. And I'm going to try to get this all done in one step. Now, we got this first metatarsal fusion. All right. My thinking is you can take this a couple ways. You can stiffen this first ray up so there's less flexion on here. What we're going to try is actually a first ray elevation. We're going to build this up just a little bit. And one sec. We're going to build this up just a little bit. I'll explain the thought process of this in just a second. Okay, so what we're trying to accomplish here is keeping that second toe from shifting to the midline. We don't want too much friction between here. So a little elevation underneath this spot, 3mm 55 EVA. You know, it's an EVA. It's going to be a little pillowy. It's on the harder side for EVAs, but this area experiences a lot of pressure. So we're just stiffening this up. We're wedging. That's the key with this. Okay. So we're going to add that. We're going to add it right around the met pad here. And we're going to build that up. Okay. Perfecto. Right there. The fun part of our job is that we can never say we've seen everything. Everybody's body is different. So with this kind of stuff, you know, there's not one perfect solution for everything. And common, you know, we have lots of different approaches to these types of problems. All right. I'm going to take my met pads to the grinder real quick. All right. So we got our first ray wedge. We've had our met pads. Now the last piece to this puzzle is going to be on the left foot, a little 5th met cutout filled with a really nice spongy polyurethane material from Acor called EcoCell Impact. This is a newer one. This is their softest version. It's a really low density, spongy polyurethane. It does a good job. All right, so take this, everything glued up. I'm gonna take the right orthotic and do a little cutout on that 5th met. We'll take a little break. We'll have a recap on what I commonly see with first metatarsal fusions. We'll get this set up, and that's going to be the workshop live. Perfecto. Okay, now, when doing a 5th met cutout, I love using my Dremel. Big fan of Dremel. These work incredibly well. I'm going to take right where the pinky toe sits. We're just going to grind it down to that top layer of EVA. We commonly get into the core piece of the support right here. You can see that. The THK, which is the white layer, usually covers just right past that 5th met, right at the end of the 5th met. So that's usually where we taper our core support pieces to. There you go. So with that tapered down to just the top layer of EVA, really like to bevel the edges nicely.
Talk to that guy. These two machines should run all day. He says you wear out the... Serious?
All right, go. Perfecto. All right, we're gonna get this glued up. We'll take a quick little break. Be right back, folks. All right, fam, back at it. We got a first metatarsal fusion, second toe is sliding over, trying to be that big toe. Anytime we have first metatarsal fusions, either surgically or naturally with a lot of bad arthritis, big toe is a lever motion, outside four toes are scrunchers. We lose that lever, second toe tries to compensate, tries to be that lever, usually doesn't work out on the wall, and then we're left with 3 scrunchers. Balance gets affected a lot of times too. So in this case, our remedy for this problem is that we're doing a first metatarsal wedge just underneath that area, trying to load it up a little bit, get that weight started a little earlier in the gait. So as the body weight's kind of shifting, we're elevating, we're letting that big toe kind of walk a little bit more naturally. This, in most cases, does a very good job. We're not looking to stiffen it. The toe is already stiff. We're just looking at a little elevation and helping the gait kind of go heel to toe more naturally. So we're gonna take the top down, and sorry about the mess. All right, so we've got everything glued up. Now we've got a 2 millimeter pour-on pad on the forefoot. That's what we started off with, and that, you know, we're gonna keep that. We're adding on top of it. Sometimes I'll skive it down. I want to make sure we get that wedge elevation the maximum amount. You only have so much space to work with, and especially in the forefoot. If you take up too much space, that's not a good thing either. So kind of respect shoes, respect how it all works together as much as you can. All right. Now on our righty, we've had this nasty corn on the 5th met that we are trying to remedy with a little extra cutout and a little extra padding in that area. We got an E18 foot type. I think I had mentioned that earlier. E18 foot type. Typically, you know, E18 foot types, you know, nice and neutral. Heel, gait, and alignment is pretty solid. Nothing too off, inside or outside, on the heel and ankle area. E18 foot types tend to have a little bit more of a swimming motion in the forefoot, a little bit more mobility than average. And when we have that, a metatarsal pad is usually a good remedy because you're addressing that midfoot through the toe off with any of the E foot types. All right, so we got our righty metatarsal pad, 5th met cutout, yay, yay. Lefty, surgically altered foot. We have our metatarsal pad plus our first ray wedge. On the wedge, we're using a 55 durometer, 3 millimeter EVA, 35, 55. Pour-on's about 15, so we got that. All right, we're in good shape. We're gonna tell this customer, try this out. It'll probably feel a little weird with that extra material underneath that first metatarsal and toe, but we're gonna give this a solid week. She'll know after the first probably day or two how it's gonna affect the mechanics. All right, we're gonna take it to the grinder, get you rolling, baby. A little tap, tap, taparoo. All right, that's a wrap, folks. So we have our right side, 5th Met Nasty Corn, nice soft cushiony area, Met pad, trying to help offload that. On the left side, 1st Met Fusion, doing a 3mm 55 durometer EVA first ray wedge, plus a Met pad. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. This has been a Workshop Live. If you got any questions, hit us up, chiapettashoes.com. Ain't no better than Chiappetta. Ciao!